Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, we're coming here with another most excellent podcast with, of course, the most excellent guests of all time. We've got a wonderful new guest that's coming to the show, but be sure to give us a like, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit that bell notification button so you can get all the notifications of all the new shows and all the reviews and the puppy videos, of course, we're doing with the new Siberian puppy. So be sure to subscribe. We certainly appreciate it. Be sure to tell your friends, neighbors, relatives, dogs, cats, get everybody in on subscribing to the podcast. We certainly appreciate that as well. They can go to iTunes or Google Play to subscribe, or they can subscribe on YouTube or the ChrisVossShow.com. We have a most excellent guest, as I mentioned today. He is Donald C. Kelly. He is the Chief Sales Evangelist and host of the popular sales podcast, The Sales Evangelist. We have a preacher, I think, in here for sales. Mm-hmm. He is the founder of the Sales Evangelist sales training organization, where he helps new and struggling sellers find more prospects, build strong value, and close more deals. And he's at the SalesEvangelist.com. Welcome to the show, Donald. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me, Chris. I appreciate it, man.
Awesome. We love having you on. So any other plugs we should be looking you up on the web?
Yeah, man. One of the things you can always check out we have a group on Facebook called the Sales Evangelizers, and we have a sales training program called TSC Hustlers League, and you can find that at the SalesEvangelist.com/hustlers. And really, it's just an online group coaching program to help sellers and so forth, and entrepreneurs to improve their sales skills. And you can always check out our podcast as well if you're interested in, as an entrepreneur or as just an individual wanting to learn more about selling, how to sell. You can go to the salespodcastnetwork.com, and that's a way to get a hold of our podcasts in the network. So it's pretty cool.
You've been doing this a long time, right?
Yeah, we've been podcasting since 2013. I mean, in podcast years, that's like dog years. I mean, it's like an ancient time period, right? But it's really been about 5 years that we've been doing this, and we produced 5 episodes per week. So we've had just over last week, we hit over the 900 mark, which is fascinating all in itself. So
is it amazing when you create that much media? Like, I remember when I was starting out doing social media in 2009, 2008, and I started making videos, and I was just like, okay, well, there's one, there's two, and then one day you wake up and there's like 3,000 whatever, and you're like, wow, that idiot sure talks a lot. That is me. In fact, I think I'm more amazed that people even bother to listen.
I know, right?
Seriously, how many people listen to this stupid idiot going off here? I think on YouTube I have like 52 million minutes viewed, which is that still just blows my mind.
Holy moly!
Yeah. So you guys are working hard. You're doing 5 podcasts a week. You're teaching people how to get clients, get sales. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but the biggest challenge is you really have to be a good salesman to be an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of hustle to it.
There is. And you're totally right on that, because here's the thing, that's the sexy part. I mean, you go back to the book like the E-Myth and so forth. Many of us have the experience where we come from the engineer. Like, we create a really cool software or a really cool service, or we have a really good idea for a coffee shop, may make great coffee. But the problem is, if you don't get people buying your coffee or buying your software or buying your book or buying your service, your window cleaning services, you have no business. And that's one of the big issues. And I think that comes from this idea that society taught us about sales, where sales is this nasty thing, right? You're going to trick somebody into doing something. And unfortunately, that's not the right way of doing sales. And if you look in if I go back to this, Chris, I think it comes from the movie industry. Because they paint a great picture in society, right? Where if you ask anyone what's the top sales movie, they're going to go to Glenn Ross or Wolf of Wall Street, right? And in these books, these movies, they're not sales professional. They're like this con artist idea. The idea of always be closing is one of the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And then also Wolf of Wall Street, homeboy is like a con artist. He got, was in jail, for goodness sakes. But it glamorizes, and that sounds cool. So that's what salespeople do. So we associate salespeople as robbing or taking something from us or tricking us to doing something we don't want to do. When in actuality, effective sellers, if you had a movie about a really good salesperson, it would be boring. There wouldn't be any entertainment to it. No no sizzle. So that's why they have to find something that's going to make people go and watch. But really good sellers, their job is to help you or me as the buyer, whether we are an entrepreneur or whatnot, to help us to make a decision that's in our best interest. They persuade us to persuade ourselves. And if you look, Jeffrey Gitomer said people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. And last time you've heard somebody say, I got sold something, I guarantee you they took that back or they were unhappy. I got sold a service I didn't need. I got sold this car. They didn't want that. They say I bought it. That means I took ownership of it. And as an entrepreneur, we've been conditioned to think that selling is bad because of those things that I just mentioned. So therefore, we don't want to do it. We don't want to be seen as that guy or that girl who's pushing something on somebody they don't want.
Yeah, and you're right. The used car stereotypical salesman, of course, makes for fun and creative characters on the movies or TV or whatever the case may be. And I as a kid, one of my first jobs was in the car business, and yeah, the used car salesman stereotype fits pretty well if you've ever been a used car salesman, especially when I grew up with them in the 80s and the 90s. But one thing I always taught my salespeople was to ask a lot of questions. What you're really trying to do when you're selling people is you're not so much the worst salesmen I've seen try and take their product and just cram it on to the to the buyer, whether they need it or not, whether they don't need it or not. The best salespeople, they ask questions. Well, I used to teach my salespeople the number one question I wanted to hear out of their mouth, and we used to monitor their calls and everything. And the number one question, the very first question I wanted my people to ask was, what are you trying to accomplish? And then shut up and listen. And that listening is so important because what you're doing is you're trying to find out what the customer wants. You're trying to find out what their needs are, what they're searching for, what problems they have. Because the beautiful part of capitalism that a lot of people disregard is capitalism is this concept that if you have a pain, if you have some sort of suffering, like the toaster doesn't work on time or doesn't do what you want it to do, or the phone just is a rotary phone that makes calls and you're just like, why do we have to do this stupid thing? If you have some sort of thing that you can make better for other people's lives and improve the quality of their lives or resolve issues or pain that they have, people usually pay you, and I think it was Earl Nightingale that said this, people usually pay you in direct proportion to the value of the service that you provide in fixing that pain. And that's really the beauty of what we do. And any great salesperson, they will listen to the client, they will ask questions of the client, they'll try and understand what sort of pain the client is trying to resolve, and then they'll present their product in that fashion that says, here's how you can resolve your issues with our product, and we both win.
So darn true on that, man. I love what you can go back to that Earl Nightingale quote, because it really comes back to this idea of value, right, man? It's like, if I, like, say for instance, you're selling, I don't know, food, you're selling, and I'm hungry at lunchtime, you're selling fried chicken or KFC. If I'm hungry, I'm going to pay you for that. It's in direct proportion, right? But if I'm not hungry, if I'm on a diet and I cannot eat that because of cholesterol, then it doesn't matter how much you push it on me, I won't buy it. It's not valuable. It's not in proportion to what I want. So I'm not going to pay you for that. So somebody who's starving, it might say, man, I'm so hungry, man, I'll give you $50 for that piece, that meal. And for me, I probably would say I would give you nothing for that deal. The value is directly in proportion to that, what I care for and what I deem as something that's important right now. And when you go back to understanding, asking that question that you just shared, asking the sales, what people are trying to do, what am I trying to get? Then that's where money, the value is at. You've heard of the golden rule, right? Which is treat others the way you would like to be treated. And the way that all of us like to be treated is to be personalized. So there's an addition now, the platinum rule, which states that you treat others the way that they would like to be treated. So we all like to be personalized. Personalize it towards me. Give me what I want. And that's going to always put you further ahead than anybody else.
Yeah. And in sales, if you focus on helping the client achieve what they want, you will usually get paid in direct proportion to the value of your services.
Yeah.
I came up through the old Zig Ziglar, Earl Nightingale their Earl Nightingale thing, W. Clement Stone, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. And so I grew up with a lot of those old life lessons, a lot of Earl Nightingale. My dad had the old records of Earl Nightingale.
Oh man, golden stuff, man.
I can't remember if it was W. Clement Stone who did, no, it was another preacher who did Acres of Diamonds, which is a really interesting parable. But sales is really awesome. I'm going to have to tune into your podcast so I can listen to some of these things, because I love the challenge of sales, the working of sales. And really, at the end of the day, if your clients are happy, they'll come buy from you again and again. Yes. And so, like what you're saying, what you said, where you're not just trying to shove somebody into buying something they're going to regret later. Any great salesperson is going to get a client for life, or a client for a long time. My longest client from social media, I think we had them for 8 years. And some people like to try new things, and a lot of my clients come back. But being able to keep in some of my other companies, we had some of the same original clients for 13 years that we'd service. And that's the real true hallmark of being a great salesperson, is that your clients love you so much they'll refer you, they'll come back to you. You fix their problems and they're going to be happy and they're going to love you. And I remember for our sales organizations, anytime I had a pissed off client, a client that would be like, I want to talk to the president, I'm pissed off with some employee, they would come up to me and I'd have to deal with, the reason they were upset. 9 times out of 10, they were upset because the salesperson had not asked the question, what are you trying to accomplish? They hadn't asked questions about what the client needed and wanted, and they just forced the sale upon them. And the client just assumed, well, they must have my best interests at heart. And at the end, they found that the product wasn't exactly what they wanted, didn't resolve their issues. And then I had to fix it, and they were very unhappy. And rightly so. I mean, I couldn't blame them at all. It's interesting how we need to teach more people how to listen. And that's one big part of being a great salesperson.
Can you repeat that? I'm just kidding.
What?
No, it is.
I was on my phone. I was on my phone. What did you say? No.
Repeat that. Repeat the whole thing again.
I was on Snapchat right there.
No, but you're right on that, man. It's go back to the communication, right? Like, it's a very miscommunication or misalignment. I've had that before, where I'll give you a perfect example. Story. I was doing software sales, Chris, and I was working for a company out of Boca Raton. We sold to city, county governments, municipalities. Here's the miscommunication. I'll tell you what happened. We were selling a product. This was back in like 2013 or so forth. But we're selling a product where, or 14 at this point. But anyways, selling a product where it was installed GUI on the client's software on their desktop, at their servers and so forth. The customer took his whole organization and put them onto Chrome. Like, everyone was just on Chrome. Our software works really great with Internet Explorer. You see where I'm getting at? Yes. I bum rushed through it. I thought I did everything that I needed to do. I didn't communicate. I didn't ask what was the client doing, what some of those things, those projects, so I can make sure. I didn't go over the specification. Now, to my defense, I could easily say the IT guys were supposed to do this in the IT call, but as a really good seller, I needed to do that way beforehand. So, long story short, nobody caught that. The client had an installation. My buddy went on site to do the installation project. He was a project manager. He gave me a phone call and he's like, hey, bro, the client's ticked off. I'm like, what? What happened? And then he explained to me that they just switched everything over to Chrome, and the software they just spent $40,000 on is not going to work effectively on Chrome. So imagine their frustration. Imagine my frustration. Imagine me in my mind. I'm thinking, dude, I just totally botched this. How can I go back to my supervisor? So anyways, you've heard the term, falling on a sword. I had to come to realize you have to do that. So I took the blame. I didn't take it to IT, and it really was my fault. I should have caught that beforehand and explained that. So I did. He was angry. I was quiet. He did his, express his irritation and frustration and taught me what I should be doing and so forth. And then by the end of the conversation, he also bought about $5,000 in printers from it. So it's like you listen to people. He was like, we need to get some printers, some scanners. So here's an order for that. Our partner Canon was very happy with it, and I was happy. But it worked. He was able to do the things that he needed to get it switched up and fixed. But it came back down to miscommunication on my part, and I can tell you that I have not let that happen again. Because sometimes as sellers or as entrepreneurs, we don't want people to be angry at us. We don't want them to get frustrated. So we don't ask certain questions. It's like we're going to get smacked if we ask a question, right? And if I ask you, tell me what you're using for your Internet Explorer, I might say, well, if I do that and they say they're using, for your internet service, they're using Chrome or Firefox, then they might smack me and say the deal is over. No, if I build enough value in what we have to offer, they're going to say, well, you know what? That's fine. We can switch to that particular service. But it comes back down to, I guess, our confidence and our willingness to ask the tough questions. And it's oftentimes just, we are the ones who, we make it awkward as sellers. But you have to be willing to do that. And there's a book I just want to plug real quick. I'm not sure if you've ever, I love good sales books, but this one is called Stop Selling, Start Leading. Part of the Wiley published it, but one of my friend Deb Calvert, the author, the concept in this book is that salespeople need to change from being subservient to being leaders. The qualities of an effective leader should be the qualities emulated by sales professionals. And they interviewed I think 500 B2B buyers. And it's pretty much like a blueprint for salespeople on what they can do. But in that, if you think about it, great leaders can see around corners, right? And to some instances, they have a vision. People will follow them because they know they're going to guide them down the right path. They're going to, they're going to do the things that's the best interest for the community. And that's one of those qualities that salespeople should be following and emulating. And that's why they wrote the book all around. Instead of here's some latest sales tactic, they say salespeople, stop thinking like salespeople, think like really good leaders and do that. And if you can think for me and show me things around corners or point out to me as the buyer, hey, Donald, I wouldn't recommend you do that because of this particular reason. And you're showing me something, raising my vision, as opposed to coming and giving me features and benefits. And then all I'm going to do is compare it based on price. Somebody could lead me, bro, all day, every day, take my money. Here you go. And that's where that power comes in, being a leader. And listen,
I totally agree with you. I really believe people are looking for leaders in their life. They're looking for people to help them accomplish things. They're looking for knowledge bases and people that can, help them achieve their goals and what they want to take and do. I always have this issue whenever I go into the Great Cut store to get my hair cut. Every time I go in, they always say to me, so what did you use last time? Did you use a number 5 or number 4 cutter? I'm like, I
didn't keep track of that.
No, this is why I pay you. You're the professional. I don't know. Look at it. I tell you how to cut it. And I don't know what blade you use. And they do that to me every time. And it's the same conversation. I'm like, I don't know. This is why I pay you to do it. If I knew it was a number 4, I'd sit at home and just buzz cut my head.
Exactly, right?
Which my hair probably looks like that anyway. So it's just that. But you're right. I really have found that people are looking for leaders. There's a reason they're coming to you, or maybe they're approaching or they're inquiring of you, is they're looking for someone to lead them into that vein to either resolve a problem, fix a pain, become better at what they're doing. They're looking at you as maybe a knowledge source or professional in that, and they're looking for you to lead them and help them find what they need to find. And that great story you brought up is so freaking awesome. I love that. You picked a $5,000 sale. You went in and stuff. And I remember there's an old story. I think it was Tom Peters who told the story, or it was Tony Robbins who tells the story in his book. He tells a story about an IBM executive who lost $20 million worth of money for the company in some bad deal or something. And he went into the CEO's office. He was the vice president. And he said, I'm tendering my resignation. I'm sure you want it. And the CEO said, are you kidding, man? We just spent $20 million educating you on what not to do. We're not going to let you go.
You're going to help us get that money back.
And, I love that story that you did. in the actual stories I told earlier, where I had salespeople that when we got to closing, people were really angry with us, and I would have to say to them, I'd have to say, look, what do I need to do to make you happy? And sometimes I had to give back all the commissions that we earned and pay the salesperson their commissions so they were happy, even though they screwed it up. But sometimes I give away sometimes $3,000 or $5,000. I just eat it all. Everything we made, just as long as they were happy. I'm like, if this makes you happy, there you go. And sometimes when they would call me, they would, be calling me every name in the book and our company every name in the book. They're really unhappy because this salesperson pissed them off. And I'd have to sit there and listen and eat my crow and go, okay, all right, we screwed up. How do I make this happen? And what's really funny is I would get repeat business from that. They would call me up a year, 2 years later when they need something else. Multiple times I get multiple deals off of them. They would call me up a year later and be like, hey, Chris, we really appreciate working with you. You were the greatest last year. And I'm sitting there thinking, you call me every 4-letter name in the book last year. I never thought I'd ever hear from you. Now you're telling me how great I was? Shut up. I'm like, okay. That's what you remember. That's cool.
That's true. Yeah.
we want to do business with you. And, these are clients I never thought I'd hear from again after I made them happy. And sometimes that's the important part of making people happy and just saying, hey, if we got to eat on this one, we got to eat on this one. And holding it down.
Yeah, it goes a long way, because for me as a buyer, if somebody's willing to own up to their mistakes, because one mistake that I find you probably can go back to ask you this question. When you were a business owner and the sales rep messed up, was the client only mad at the sales rep or they're mad at the company?
He was mad at everybody. Yeah,
exactly. And I just don't get how people see that sometimes. You find an organization where it's like people don't think that if they give bad service, like it's not going to affect everyone. Everyone's going to get affected. Everyone's arm's going to get smacked. But when someone is good or someone is able to say, we messed up and not, I didn't point a finger at IT at all. I didn't say, anything for that in that story. I went back and I just said, it was my fault. I laid on that sword and I just took it, and it made a difference to them, because sometimes you find people it's a human tendency, right? We don't want to say we're bad. We want to pass the blame on. Well, it's definitely our customer service department. I'm so sorry they did that. It's our IT department. I'm so sorry they did that. It's this fault, but every time, just take the blame. In my leadership roles right now, I feel like I have all these holes in my chest because I fell on a sword so many times, bro. Like, I don't know how I'm breathing, man. It's people can see through me, but it's just that same idea. If a leader, you have to be willing to do that. And if you are, then people respect you for it. They'll find it commendable. They'll trust you, and they will want to work with you in the future and continue because you have the best interest in mind.
In fact, that's the way I used to diffuse a lot of sales issues when people were complaining. I'd pick up the phone. I'd be like, I understand that we screwed something up. Explain to me what's going on. And they right away would flip the switch because they'd be expecting me to throw them 5 million excuses and wait, right away I'd just be like,
give me something so I can argue with you. Come on, man.
We used to have a giant telemarketing company along with our other companies that would generate sales leads for us. And every now and then you'd have this person who just wanted their name removed off the list. And they get into a huge argument with the telemarketer, no matter how, and we train them to just, hey, if somebody wants off the list, let them off the list. Just give them what they want. But these people weren't always the greatest at how to deal with people. And they would get in these arguments. And then finally they'd be like, hey, you kind of take this call because this person's out of hand. And I come on the call, and the first thing I'd say before I even heard anything is, I understand you want to be removed from the list. I'm removing you right now. And the person would like, oh, okay, thanks. All right, that was easy. And then I'd take them off the list and hang up. Like, why don't you just say that, man? And from a corporation or leadership thing, like in your case with the story of where you you sold the Chrome, or they had the Chrome and worked on Internet Explorer. I as a CEO would look at that as my fault in training you, that I should have done a better job in training you and maybe highlighting those differences and stuff like that. I would look at that as an organizational sort of failure, as opposed to a salesperson sort of failure.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes a good leader, right? It's it's you looking, what can we learn from this? What can we take from that? And in the moment, I know it's frustrating, but when you can see, if you're a leader and you could see above the clouds, you can see the vision. You're like, what's going to happen if I get this kid selling? He can close. He closed this deal. What could I get if I can get him to think better on this? He can close probably 2 more of these deals. So it's you seeing around the corner and recognizing, yeah, I'm going to make a pitfall now, but I'm going to get up and perform better later. That's powerful, man.
Yeah, it definitely is. It makes a huge difference. So what are some of the other things you do over there at the Sales Evangelist?
Yeah, so we actually do. So the biggest thing is a sales training. So companies typically, small mid-sized company, they'll you've probably seen them too. They don't have any sales training processes, don't have any type of guidance. So they have us come in and we do consulting. So as a consultant, we look at their sales training, we look at what measures they have in place. We help them get an effective process that's going to tie to their customers, and then we teach their sales teams how to sell after we help them develop a sales process. After we teach them how to sell, our next goal after that is to keep them consistent. Most sales training programs, it's like a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, come in once and you're gone. But we have like our Hustlers League, and our program is typically like 6 weeks for when I go into a company, and it's 1 hour a week to 2 hours that we train and then give them opportunities to practice. We follow up the next week and so forth. We want to change habits, right? And then they go into our ongoing program, our online program. Typically, that's for people who don't have sales in their organization and companies not investing, the individuals may be investing. They sign up for the TSE Hustlers League, or sometimes companies just pay for it, reimburse the reps. And then I speak, so I get an opportunity to speak every once in a while. Try to average at least once a month. And we go, speak at on different platforms.
That's awesome. The Hustlers League.
Yeah.
Sales is a career. It's a lifelong learning thing. It's been one of the most important things I've learned in my life, because out of sales, you learn to be a good leader. You learn to be a good CEO. Everyone wants to be a CEO of their own company and have their own thing, which I've been since like 18. But the problem is that people don't realize is you're not just sitting as a fat cat in some mansion in Florida somewhere, smoking cigars and, I don't know, talking like Tony Montana from Scarface. You've got to be selling everyone in the corporation. You've got to sell your employees on why they should keep working for you and what the vision of the company is. You've got to sell board of directors, investors. You've got to sell customers. You've got to sell vendors on working for you. I used to spend a lot of time developing vendor relationships with our vendors and making sure that they felt like they were part of what we were doing and integrated and trying to get the best that we could out of them. And in those relationships, because I would build them and manage them well and try and make them feel like they were an integral part of our company, I would sometimes get better pricing or better services that I would negotiate out of them. And that was something that really makes a difference. But people don't realize, when you start your own company, you've got, the sales extends to everybody that you're involved with. And it's not just, I got to sell a customer and then I'm done, I go home.
Yeah. It goes way more than that, right? And I love what you mentioned about you're selling to everyone in an organization, especially as an effective leader, right? You need to guide people. And that's one of the cool things people don't understand with sales. Like you hear the cliche thing, like, everybody is in sales, and it truly is. If you look at selling as the ability to persuade someone to persuade themselves, whether it's going to the movies or whether we want to eat for dinner tonight, or it's why we should do a white elephant gift exchange as opposed to buying presents for everyone, you have to persuade people on something that's best you deem best for them. And you've seen something that can probably help them and help them to persuade themselves. And especially in an organization where you're leading it as a CEO, you are selling. Everything you do, you're selling, and you are being sold, and you need to make it recognize, when you need to make good buying decision. Sometimes what I think is effective as a leader is not the most effective thing, because my team is able to help persuade me that, DK, let's try this instead. And I think that's one thing you need to understand as a leader. You have to be willing to recognize that you don't know everything, and you need to be persuaded to try different things. Sometimes, obviously, if you can see around corners, great, but oftentimes we need help as well. We're human, and we make mistakes, and that's why you got to be humble and willing to learn.
And like you say, aside from the characters in Hollywood movies or TV, we're all salespeople deep down. I mean, every time you're chasing a girl or selling her or texting her on she should go out with you, or vice versa, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we're selling people every time you're trying to talk to your mom and to go in and make you some food for breakfast or whatever is going on in your life. If you're a parent, a lot of times you're selling your kid on why they shouldn't poop on the floor and they should clean up their mess. And we do a lot of sales in life, and no one ever really thinks about how they're selling. I've heard my conversations with my brother and his son.
Yeah.
And his son's fairly independent, and so he has to kind of explain why this is important for you to do. And it's selling when it comes down to it. And I don't think we realize how much all of us really sell when it comes down to it. Ideas, concepts, what we want in life. I mean, sometimes I'm selling when I go into a restaurant. I'm like asking the waiter, what's the best thing to eat? And can you bring me this? And I want this and I want that. And I'm selling him on why he should make me this custom whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything is selling in what we're doing. Even when you're like, hey, honey, can you get me a beer out of the fridge? You don't need a beer. No, I really want one. Here's why I want it.
Here's the reason why.
Here's the reason why.
And she's like, here's the reason why not.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of sales, and it is a real career thing. There's over the sales lifetime career that I've had, there's the old I forget his name, Wooden. He's a great basketball coach. John Wooden, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And John would always, he'd have basketball players that would, run down the court and do a really cool layup or cool, shots and stuff like that. And he's like, look, that's great, but let's get back to the basics. Let's get back to working I forget what they call it, but the horse key, we used to play horse basketball. The key around there. That's great. You can do those dunk shots, but let's see some free throws,
Yeah.
I think Shaq could have probably used John Wooden back in the day for those free throws.
Oh my goodness. A couple things.
It's notoriously bad for. So going back to sales, learning the basics of sales and everything else. I remember years ago when I got in the car business by accident, and I'd gone with a leasing car company. They gone out of business, and I was like, well, I'm no car people, so I'll go sell cars for a little bit. And when I went in there, I couldn't sell anything. I couldn't sell my way in a paper bag. And one of my sales managers, he came to me. He goes, look, man, we're probably going to have to let you go because you can't sell at all. And I'm like, I don't, what is this magic mystical, thing, voodoo sales? How do I sell? Yeah. And he goes, look, man, I'm going to give you I think it was $5 or something. He goes, I'm going to give you $5 because he knew I was broke. I was a kid living on top ramen back then. And he goes, I'm going to give you $5 and I want you to go buy Zig Ziglar's book. I think it was Closing Sales or something like that. The title escapes me. Yeah. And so he goes, I want you to read this book, go buy this book with this money. And he goes, I want you to read this book. And if you'll do that, you can probably stay here. But if you go spend this $5, you're probably gone. Yeah. So I went and bought the book. It was Zig Ziglar, How to Close Sales. I think it was something along those lines. Big, thick thing. And I started reading through it and learning how to be a salesperson and how to sell. And I survived. I think I was like a year in the car business, and then I moved on to train to be a stockbroker.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Yeah, well, congratulations to the boss who taught me. I had another great teacher who taught me about how to close the sale and assume the sale and stuff like that. That was an interesting story. He came up to me and he said, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And I go, okay, great. He goes, I want you to, take a pull out your wallet. So I pull out my wallet. He goes, open it up, and I open it up, and he goes, hand me that $20 bill that's in there. And so I give it to him, and he goes, okay, thanks. He puts it in his pocket, and he walks off. And I'm like, hey, man, you took my $20 bill. He goes, no, you gave it to me. It's mine now. And he goes, I'm keeping it because I'm going to teach you a very important lesson. He goes, he goes, the whole time, did I ask you any questions? I go, no. He goes, yeah. He goes, I told you what to do, and you did it. Oh, wow, that's one way to close this.
Come on, man. That's my lunch money, man.
He actually did give it back to me because he was a broke, stupid kid. But it was a great lesson in assuming the sale and closing the sale and getting to a money transfer, I suppose, like getting down to the car business. But interesting to go that way.
No, dude, that's phenomenal, man.
So, Donald, it's been wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I encourage a lot of people to go check you out, check your websites out, because learning sales is a continual thing. Even once you learn the basics, you've got to go back and learn them again. You've got to study the sales thing. It's a lifelong experience, and sometimes you always have to go back to the basics. You have to go back. You know, I've had salespeople, they get overselling and they get too complicated in their sales process where customers just go, I don't know what all this is. I'm going to go someplace that can just get me done. And so give us the plugs of where people can look you up on the web and all that good stuff.
Sure. There's one thing you can do. You can always go back to the salesevangelist.com. Check us out. You can always go also check out the TSC Hustlers League. You just go to salesevangelist.com/hustlers. Or you can always check out our Facebook group, the Sales Evangelizers, and the Sales Podcast Network. So multiple platforms there where you just want to connect with us. If you're serious about sales and want to improve, here's what I'll tell you to do. Just go to the salesevangelist.com/Voss. If you're really serious, you're just listening to Donald's cool, go to those other links. But if you really want to improve your sales, go to salesevangelist.com/Voss. And what I'll do there is actually, we have a PDF that we created. It's about prospecting, and many of us who are in sales and we have to find customers, we talked about how ideas is a checklist that you can take advantage of with some strategies and insights to find your ideal customers, reaching out via cold call or using social selling, or reaching out via email. And you can take advantage of it. I think it's like 5 pages altogether. But if you're serious, check that out, salesevangelist.com/Voss. And you can download
Sounds
that.
Awesome, Donald. Now, the Facebook group, is that open, or is that a mastermind?
It's a closed group, but a private group, I should say. But it's open for anyone to join. We just we regulate it, so we just engage.
Yeah, so you don't have all this scammers, and weird Nigerian stuff going on in there.
I know, man. I met so many princes over the past little bit.
I get a ton of that. The group spammers that hit my group. So yeah, I know what you feel like. So everyone check that out. I'm going to go check it out and join it. I certainly appreciate Donald being on the show. Everyone check out his website, check out his podcast and all his different tools. He has some great stuff there for learning the sales business. You mentioned Jeffrey Gitomer. Actually, he was supposed to be on Friday, and him and his partner had some conflicts of coming on, and so they're going to be coming on a different show. So we'll be looking forward to seeing them, and those of you who follow the podcast can look forward to seeing him on the show. I think they're just rescheduling now, so we'll get them back on and rock and roll. So should be pretty
awesome,
cool.
Man. Well, Jeffrey's awesome. We had him twice on our podcast, episode number 1, and I think episode number in the 700. So it was
nice.
Cool to have him. So he's legendary.
Start out that way. That's a great way to start out.
Oh man, catapult us.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks for Donald for coming by. Everyone check out his website. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.